some reason, when I was preparing to record this episode, I kept on seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I don't really know if everything about this is bad. So I'm going to say not bad, maybe more like disappointing, because the players that fell on the bad side of things were players that I was kind of looking for better seasons from. So maybe I looked at it through a different lens, and that could be a little bit of self preservation not to get too upset when prospects that I invest time and feelings and everything into don't turn out to be what I want them to be. And this isn't really like kind of, I wouldn't even say expect it to be, just because, I mean, people that get this invested into the Pirates minor league system may at times get their vision blurred a little bit based on relationships built, or like I said, investment in a player, putting your time into, watching the minor league teams as much as some of us do. And another part of it is, I mean, I hate to say it, wanting to be right. I think that anybody who does this and is okay with being wrong all of the time. I mean, that's not why we get in front of a microphone, write articles, whatever it may be. I feel like we need to be okay with being wrong, but it's not like we go into this wanting to be wrong. So I guess this would be a long-winded way of saying this is the good, not bad, but more disappointing Pittsburgh Pirates minor league players of the year, going in top five and unfortunately bottom five for me. And once again, these are just personal opinions, and it may not be the worst performing minor leaguers for the season, but ones that I'm kind of just a little bit disappointed on how the season went. Obviously, it doesn't mean that I'm writing them off for the future, but it basically means they didn't have the season that I thought that they were going to have. Without further ado, we're going to go with the good first here. We're going to lead with the good. And for anybody listening out there, this is going to be a statistical jam-packed episode. So, I mean, just be prepared for WRC pluses, slash line, K rates, base on ball rates to the extreme. And the first part of the good, and on the batter side, it kind of goes back to the episode that I had done on the Pirates choosing to make a change in their international scouting, Junior Vizcaino. And I looked up and down through the Pirates minor league system for batters that were quote unquote good. So it's not like I cherry picked these whatsoever. Looked at stats, watched videos, went back, watched games that I could, and it came up with this list. And guys, it's a lot of the international signings and players that were identified on the minor league scouting side of things with a touch of that international market. The first player, in no particular order, Johnny Severino. And I know that Severino is a guy that was selected and paid, picked by another team for a international bonus, but then traded for but it's also someone that was identified as a potential target when he was on the international market by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So they couldn't get him the first go around with the international signing bonus, and then ended up making the trade for him. So yes, this will not count on Junior Vizcaino's resume whatsoever, but it doesn't fully take away from what was done on the international market, and that's, in my opinion, in the complex and Bradenton. 19-year-old Severino had 220 plate appearances in the FCL, a 139 WRC plus, struck out 15.9% of the time, walked 11.8% of the time, 10 home runs, went up to low A Bradenton, 123 plate appearances, a 116 WRC plus, did strike out a decent amount, just over 32% of the time. Only walked about, I think it was 6.5% of the time, but did continue to hit for power. 6 home runs. Number 2, a very young man down in the Dominican Summer League, Edward Florentino, 17 years old, an 890 OPS, over 190 plate appearances, good for a 144 WRC plus, walked 20% of the time, struck out 18.9% of the time. Always good to see from a young player who is walking more than he strikes out, and did show a little bit of power with 5 home runs. 20-year-old Esmeralyn Valdez, number 3, spent the year in Bradenton, an 815 OPS, 435 plate appearances, a 132 WRC plus. Another guy who is a little bit high on the strikeout rate, 30.6%, did lead the Florida State League in home runs with 22 long balls, 132 WRC plus. Once again, just an all-around great season for Esmeralyn Valdez. Number 4, Tony Blanco Jr., 19 years old, in the complex. Small sample size here. 109 plate appearances, a 138 WRC plus, 11% walk rate, 28.4% K rate, 4 home runs, a giant human being. Looking forward to see what he can do in low A Bradenton next year. Also in the complex league, number 5, Carlos Caro. 156 plate appearances, a 135 WRC plus, 14.1% walk rate, 15.4% K rate, 2 home runs, 8 doubles, 2 triples, just a contact monster. Those are the hitters, and I did the hitters first because a lot of times we're looking for, those top hitters within the minor league system. Unfortunately, all of these guys on the lower level that I found, not saying there weren't some guys that were in consideration that were, around the high A, double A area of the minor leagues, but a lot of young guys, a promising future on the pitcher side. A lot of these are going to be no surprise. Number 1, in no particular order, but maybe a little bit of an order here, Bubba Chandler. Bubba Chandler started out in Double A Altoona, pitched over 80 innings there, a 3.70 ERA, a 1.01 whip, and 10.53 Ks per 9. 39 and a third innings in Triple A after the promotion to the Indianapolis Indians. 1.83 ERA, a 1.04 whip, 12.36 Ks per 9. If you've listened to the Indianapolis Indians recap, and if you haven't, go back and listen to it with the broadcaster Jack McMullen from the Indianapolis Indians and just baseball media. Talked a lot about Bubba Chandler and also talked a lot about number 2 on the list here, Thomas Harrington. Also started out in Double-A Altoona, 68 innings pitched, a 2.24 ERA, a 1.00 whip. 46 innings after the promotion to the Indianapolis Indians, 3.33 ERA. And no, this is not wrong. A 0.93 whip. That is not a typo. Going down, Carlson Reed started out the season in low A Bradenton, 72 2/3 innings pitched, a 2.43 ERA, a 1.25 whip. Moved up to high A Greensboro, 31 innings pitched, and that does not include his time in the playoffs for the Grasshoppers. A 0.87 ERA, a 0.65 whip. Next in line, Hunter Barco. 62 innings pitched for high A Greensboro. Got a cup of coffee in Double-A, but going to focus on those high A numbers. 62 innings pitched. A 3.34 ERA, a 1.10 whip. And then I'm going to cheat here a little bit. Everybody that listens to, when I do the top 5 Pirates prospects, sometimes I do cheat on this a little bit. I'm going to give a 5A and a 5B. 5A, Michael Kennedy, 73 innings pitched for low A Bradenton. Not going to look great on the ERA, but it's going to show it in the other numbers. The 4.07 ERA, a 3.73 FIP, showing that he was getting just a tiny bit unlucky, and that is shown by the 1.12 whip. Bumped up to high A Greensboro for a little bit more than a cup of coffee, but not much more than that. 10 2/3 innings pitched, a 0.84 ERA. Did have the 1.87 FIP. I wanted to kind of point out, maybe he got a little bit lucky as opposed to unlucky, but he did continue to keep the guys off the base paths. A 0.84 whip. 5B, Alessandro Ercolani, 20 years old, A plus Greensboro, 76 2/3 innings pitched, a 3.29 ERA, a 1.08 whip, 10.92 Ks per 9 for that young man. Looking forward to him hopefully in Altoona next year. Kennedy more than likely starting back out in Greensboro, but the Pirates pitching factory continues. And unfortunately, after the break here, we're going to have to go to the not bad, more like disappointing. This time for the not bad, more like disappointing. Gonna start on the pitching side of things here. And I know I usually say in no particular order, but this one has to be number one for me. And I believe I'm not alone in this. Anthony Solomito, what we saw from him last year in 2023 between high A Greensboro, double A Altoona, 110 1/3 innings pitched, a 1.187 whip, a 3.26 ERA, 118 Ks, 39 walks. This season was, like I said, disappointing. Between the FCL, Low A Bradenton, Double A Altoona, 58 and two-thirds innings pitched, a 1.521 whip, a 5.63 ERA, 53 Ks, so over, half the Ks there. But the crazy part is that in not so much half the innings, but right around half the innings, he had the same amount of walks, 39 walks. For anybody that hasn't, Andrew Destin of the Post-Gazette wrote a very good article towards the beginning of the season about Solometo's struggles, and also, talking with him about what that might be. Go back and look at, I believe it might not have been the it's not the recap of Altoona, but did kind of like a mid-season report with John Moses from the Altoona Curve, talking about the changes and different things that Solometo was doing, with his grips and different stuff. Some of the pitches would be getting better while other ones would fall off while he was making those adjustments. Working on, lower body strength, a bunch of different things, but overall just a very disappointing season for Solometo. Number 2, Carlos Jimenez. For him, 2023, he only pitched 13 innings, so was really looking forward to seeing what he could do this season. Between Low A Bradenton and High A Greensboro, 75 and two-thirds innings pitched. The ERA is going to look kind of good if you just kind of like scan the numbers, a 3.33 ERA, but a 1.573 whip. And this is more on the disappointing side for me. Obviously going from 13 innings pitched to 75 innings pitched. Hopefully, next season turns out a little bit better for him. Another guy that kind of falls along those lines for me is Wilbur Dotel. In 2023, in Low A Bradenton, 78 and two-thirds innings pitched, a 3.09 ERA, a 1.373 whip. Was looking for him to take a step forward. With the promotion to High A Greensboro this year. All of the numbers regressed, some of them more than others. Was able to pitch 106 and one-third innings. The whip only went up, a little bit. The 1.429 saw the ERA at 5.33. Was hoping that the numbers would get better. They did decline a little bit. Some of that may be a little bit park related, but was looking for a better season for him. Number 4, Antoine Kelly in 2023 in Bradenton. 39.2 innings pitched, a 2.95 ERA, a 1.336 whip. In 2024, back in Bradenton, 69 innings pitched, a 4.43 ERA, a 1.420 whip. Dealing with some stuff this year that also kind of leads to the disappointment, but was looking for improvement, looking for possibly a promotion. So, not all his fault with dealing with some stuff, but still falls on the disappointing side of things. The last one for the pitching, Jaden Woods, round 7, out of Georgia from last season. He had just a good start to the season, I would say, in High A Greensboro. 2.13 ERA across 25 and one-thirds inning, a 1.22 whip. Moving up to Altoona, a 4.93 ERA, a 1.47 whip, 34 and two-thirds innings pitched. And that's why I say not really bad, but just more disappointing than anything. Looking for him to hopefully bounce back in Altoona next season. And now to the hitters. And there were, unfortunately, a decent amount of hitters to choose from. Malcolm Nunez in 2023, it was an IL plague season. Was hoping that if he got a full season of work, we would see a little bit more from him, seeing that he is still very young. He did get 526 plate appearances. Great to see. 11 home runs. Pretty good to see. Kept the strikeout rate right around 20.5. But unfortunately, the other numbers were not great. An 8% walk rate, so below kind of like that 10%. If the K rate goes up over 20%, like to see that walk rate work itself up over 10%. A 75 WRC plus, a 675 OPS. Number 2, Shaylin Polanco. In 2023, he had a 104 WRC plus, 12 home runs, a 763 OPS. Looking for him to take that step forward. In 2024, over 432 plate appearances, he had 11 home runs. The WRC plus dropped to 80. The OPS dropped to 623. 31% K rate, a 10.2% base on ball rate. Lonnie White Jr., a guy who has dealt with injuries since he's been drafted. Looking for big things from him, especially starting in High A Greensboro. 375 plate appearances, 14 home runs, everything else not great. An 80 WRC plus, a 614 OPS, a 167 batting average, 34.4% K rate, 9.6% base on ball rate. Both him and Polanco, guys that prospect, junkies, hounds, whatever it may be within the Pirate system, we're looking for big seasons for both of those guys. Did not get it. My own personal disappointment here, Sung-Chae Chang. In 2023, in High A, he had a 163 WRC plus, 18.5% K rate, 13.8% base on ball rate, a 980 OPS, 9 home runs. And I know that some of that is it's stadium aided in Greensboro. Looking to see what he could do in his second quote-unquote go-around in Altoona. Did work his WRC plus up to a 95, over the 500 plate appearances, 11 home runs, a 662 OPS, a 23.4% K rate, was still walking at a good clip, 12.2%. But I was really looking for him because a lot of players, he performed well in Greensboro last year, struggled with the promotion last season to Double-A Altoona. A lot of times after those adjustments are made in their first full season, they will take a step forward. That was not the case for Chang, but looking for better things because the second half of the season was much better for him than the first half of the season. But once again, kind of looking for the same thing I was looking for this year, a bounce back, an adjustment season for him. And then finally, number 5, Liover Peguero, an 88 WRC plus, 555 plate appearances. And once again, go back and listen to the recap that I did with Jack McMullen from the Indianapolis Indians, Just Baseball Media. Recapped some thoughts on Peguero, the season-long recap of him, and what the future may hold for him. A 729 OPS, a 25% K rate, the 8.3 base on ball rate. But he did hit 13 home runs. I mean, he did have more home runs than that during the previous season, but does still show that pop that gives us all that promise. But a 729 OPS and an 88 WRC plus, especially when talking about how Triple A pitching was down across the board this past season. You would hope that Peguero would have been able to capitalize on that, was not able to. Very interested to see what the Pirates do decision-wise with Peguero moving in to the offseason, through the offseason, and to the beginning of next year. I don't know, guys. It's still pitching heavy. There is some hope with the young guys, and I know they are pretty far away. Hopefully, they can be accelerated throughout the system if they continue to perform. If not, it's going to be a little while to wait on what I saw as, the best of the best on the hitting side of things. The pitching still continues to be great.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer. Let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
Speaking of disappointing, and I'm not speaking poorly about a brewery, especially a brewery I know very little about and hadn't heard of until I picked up their little sampler pack. The main reason I picked it up, it was because they were called Von Trapp Brewing. And I mean, people may not know this about me, but I'm a little bit of a musical buff. I love musicals. Part of that was passed down to my daughter, who is the stage crew manager for the musicals at her high school. She's also what I've called on this show and on Bucks in the Basement before, also the biggest baseball fan within the family besides myself. But basically drank these beers, and maybe I'm going to have to revisit this just because I did drink a decent amount of Oktoberfest, hazy IPAs, a little bit like heavier beers during this time. And these ones were more on the lighter side of things. So sometimes when you have, a hazy IPA, full flavored, you have all of those Oktoberfests with their malts. And then you go to these different types of beers, which, are more of, the traditional Eastern, the shouldn't say Eastern, the European types of beers. You don't really maybe get the best showing for them. So I'm going to revisit these guys a little bit, but from Von Trapp Brewing. And I'm sure you guys are going to run out and get this now, but still go out and try it, just because, like I said, maybe you guys will like these a lot more because they're more of your type of beer. Or, you may not have drank a bunch of Oktoberfests right before having these. The first one is their Pilsner, coming in at 5.4%. I gave that one a 375, knock it down to 325. The Vienna, 5.2, give that one a 350, knock it down to 300. The Helles, 4.9, give that one a 350, knock it down to 300. And I will say my favorite of these types of beers is a Kolsch, 5%. That one got the highest score out of this sampler pack, a 400, knock it down to 350. I do have 4 of these left in my fridge, 1 of each. I am going to try them again at some point in time here, maybe in the spring when I'm drinking more of some of the quote-unquote lighter beers in my toolbox, my repertoire, whatever it may be. But until next time, let's go Scottsdale Scorpions. And come on, off season. I've been waiting way too long for you to actually come.